Alright, we're alive. So what does Victor think about the state of nerdom?
Well, first of all, Apple and Google have finally shown their balls.
Well, yeah, since they're effectively having to do it in public, but in public they've always stated, no, we definitely will not turn your information over to the government. And
Yeah.
then in private, they usually have.
Yeah, and then the government shot on them for it. Or I should say, the politicians did.
Well, a lot of people shat on them over that.
Mm.
But yes, the fact is, the companies which most blatantly cooperated on these previous ventures got a lot of trouble and somewhat coincidentally had a rather bad time in their stock prices and valuations after it was found out that they had assisted in snitching on their consumers.
Well, yes, and that's kind of the I say this is more bad from the Obama administration than the actual companies, because I'm sorry, but if you're the government and you're going to say, look, this is a matter of national security, there could be a biological weapon about to tick down that is going to kill millions, if not billions of people. And the only way we're going to be able to find that out is if we can get into this information. Most human beings are going to say, okay, here you go. However, when it was found out about, instead of basically saying, look, these companies had to cooperate, we asked them, this was a thing of national security, we're going to create a streamlined process, and basically commended them and said, look, don't blame them, blame us if you disagree with it. No, instead they basically said, yep, it was Apple and Microsoft and all of these companies are to blame. We just asked for the information. They could have always told us no.
Well, they never quite said that. They just heavily implied it.
Yeah, they heavily implied it. They didn't defend them. They didn't basically show any examples of this information being used to stop a 24 scenario. It's clear they were under some pressure, and then they left them hanging to dry.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like they wanted to share the blame.
Yeah, this is called leadership. When someone basically sticks their neck out for you and then the axe comes down, you want to try and help them.
But mind you, the fact is, the majority of candidates currently running in the presidential races are in favor of mandatory backdoors that the government and law enforcement agencies can use to get into your private information.
Which is completely and utterly stupid.
I mean, really, the only ones who have taken a major stand against it are Rand Paul, who's now out, and Ted Cruz.
Yeah. And no, it's completely stupid. It's the absolute wrong way we should be going. If you want to crack down on, say, the specter of cyber terrorism, you want all of these systems as secure as possible. If you want to crack down on things like doxing and cyberbullying, again, you don't want any backdoors there.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, really, instead of the intelligence agencies, or at least the U.S. and Western intelligence agencies constantly trying to figure out how to break into their own citizens' stuff and their own company stuff, they really should be spending their time helping U.S. citizens and U.S. companies, or in Canada's case, Canadian citizens and Canadian companies, or so forth and so on, to actually make their stuff more secure and harder to break into.
Oh, yes. If they were to make things more secure and harder to break into, it would crack down on cyberbullying, all of these things they've listed. Also, espionage by Chinese and Russian and other foreign companies? No, it would help tremendously.
Yes, no, but instead they're obsessed with their ability to see everything, their ability to get in there, their ability to make everything weaker so that they can have the possibility of knowing everything.
Well, yeah, well,
instead of actually protecting people from the actual crimes.
Well, not only that, but it seems like in terms of security, they've fallen into this trap where they feel they need more information and more information. And somehow if you get that bigger wad of information, somehow it's going to really make things better. Sort of like how people get into the idea that if you throw more money at things, somehow it's going to become better. And there's a point where it doesn't.
Well, that's the thing. They get blamed for not knowing.
Yeah.
All the big blame comes about that they don't know things. Whenever there's some sort of intelligence failure, the politicians and the press come screaming, and to some degree the public, saying, why didn't you know this? Or if you did know parts of this, why didn't you put it together? But the fact is the intelligence agencies are already processing too much information. Yes. A certain amount of it can be done by algorithms, but there's a certain point where that information has to go by an actual human being, which has to say, oh dear, that's a real problem. And there's just too much information. They'd be far better off actually restricting the information from them and their enemies.
No. It's not an efficient strategy, and it just thinks too much of politics. Like, as I said, like, a part of...
Victor.
Yep.
Please stop eating.
Yes. All right. Like,
and banging the desk.
I'm actually not banging the desk.
You were earlier.
No, I wasn't.
All right, you were tapping something.
Anyways. Look. People are scared, and the easy answer is, well, we're going to get more information, right? And I don't think there's many actual intelligence experts that really believe they need more information. Like, they will always say, well, more information will help, but there's usually a but after they say that line, and then they'll go on to, but what we really could use... No, they're going for the easy answer, and in the end, they're making everything weaker as a result. Now, the good thing, at least in this fight, they now actually have to legally show they could get the information, or actually have to pass something to get the information.
Well, we'll see. As I said, the majority of candidates running for the election currently are saying they want to put into law that there is mandatory backdoors in everything.
Yes, and at least then, they have to take responsibility for it. And all the problems that are going to be caused from it.
We'll see. I'm pretty sure they can pass the blame off on other people, especially if those backdoors can be accessed secretly.
Oh, you mean where, well, we wanted you to have a backdoor, but not this kind of backdoor that allowed the Cthulhu virus to spread through all of America's computers.
Well, more along the lines of, who looked in your back door? It wasn't us who looked in your back door. You probably just left your back door open.
Yeah.
But in any case, in happier news, Facebook is giving us more options. Yay, Facebook.
Yeah, after millions of dollars and thousands of hours, we now have the option of liking something, loving it, going ha ha, wow, sad, or angry.
Well, you could sort of do that in the comment already.
Yeah, you could. Really, Well, it's nice Facebook has changed it up. Just looking through things, most people are already still just using likes anyways. Although I have to admit that now that I'm looking at some of the news articles, some people are going with wow and angry. So
Yeah, I know. It's beginning to throw things up. I mean, people occasionally post really sad things like about puppies being drowned, and you don't really want to like an article about puppies being drowned. You sort of want to be sad about an article about puppies
yeah.
being drowned.
Uh,
So, I mean, it's a good thing
yes.
amongst all the somewhat awfulness that is Facebook.
Oh, Facebook is a tool. It's just a matter of how you use it. The one thing that
Or how it uses you.
yes, well, there is that. The one thing that would be nice for Facebook to do would to be disclose how it's using your information, and also, or I should say more honestly, disclose how it's using your information, but also give you control over things or more control over things like what your news feed is going to be like.
Yes, that would be nice. I mean, you do have some liking and removing and saying you don't want to see this kind of post, you do like this kind of post. But I think it's pretty sure, especially with Facebook and the partnerships it has made, that soon a sort of semi-shadow banning of the undesirable elements will be going on in Facebook, just like it is going on in Twitter.
Yes, which is going to kill Facebook like it is killing Twitter.
I don't know. You've actually pointed out Facebook is a tool. A huge number of people use it, and there's no real competition out there.
There's still competitor programs, and the fact is, if they basically shadow ban a group of people for what their views are, they are going to figure it out. They're going to throw a shit fit, and they're going to migrate to somewhere else, like we're seeing with Twitter right now, where pretty much the entire conservative and to a certain extent the liberal base of Twitter is flying away to somewhere else.
Oh, they're not really flying away to somewhere else. There isn't somewhere else which is like Twitter. They already are chatting on other locations. They have their own blogs, their own little forums, in some case their own boards, image boards. But Twitter is somewhat unique. It's just becoming less and less useful.
Well, yes, active usership has dropped down. You're only getting a narrower and narrower point of view. And still, yeah, maybe there isn't one decided king on what's going to be replacement Twitter, but people are looking for it. The Ralph retort has gone on to a Facebook Twitter mashup called Sue, which actually isn't bad in my opinion. And there's other programs around like it. Eventually, if things keep going the way they are, they're going to just move.
Oh, things will slowly happen, but until a critical momentum is on another site, Facebook is still effectively going to be something you have to be on, especially since some of your friends will only effectively really talk to you on Facebook or be contactable on Facebook.
Yeah, but still, with movements, for example, like that you should defriend your friend if they are supporting Donald Trump, and the general push away the conservative elements from the main arteries of social media, they're going to end up creating conservative Facebook and conservative Twitter.
Yeah, but there's going to be tiny little communities which already sort of exist out there. The vast bulk of people on Facebook and Twitter, well, maybe not so much Twitter, but definitely on Facebook, is people who just want to have personal and, in many cases, business connections.
Well, that's true. but still, Twitter's stock price is crashing. These actions are not going to increase their user base. It's going to just further decrease it. And they're heading towards just going bankrupt or being bought out by someone else.
Well, that was sort of happening anyway. They don't really have a sustainable business model.
Well, they would if they do things like put in an ad banner onto the top of Twitter or something.
Yes, but apparently they decided they don't want to do the sort of equivalent of Google AdSense.
No, they don't. Which no one can understand why. Like, it probably is not going to immediately cover all of their costs, but it will definitely slow down the giant black hole that is their losses.
Yeah, but they'll also get a huge amount of complaints and a whole bunch of people quitting Twitter over it. But then again, if they do it in a not too intrusive way, they might be able to get away with it. But you also have to remember that a large amount of people who follow Twitter don't use their computer to follow Twitter, and there isn't really a lot of ad space available on certain Twitter feeds on your phone and other devices.
Well, that's true. But this is still something they've had years to find a solution to. And they haven't found the solution. Instead, they've basically decided to sell their souls to the social justice warriors.
I think that's a personal decision. I think they truly support and believe in that ideology like a lot of people do. Well, at least in the version that they think it is and that they see. Because that's not getting the money. That's just... as they see it, cleaning up their site from all the evil harassers and people who are ruining it for everyone else.
Yes, but...
it's a simple solution.
Yes, it's a simple solution that if they stopped and really thought about it, they'd realize that if they did succeed in cleaning themselves of all those people, which they might, they'll also give up one of the reasons the social justice warriors are on their site. Once they have no one to argue with and debate and demean, they're going to drop off.
Nonsense. If there's one thing I have seen about radical movements, is that once they run out of external enemies, they'll always find internal enemies.
Okay, they're going to just eat themselves.
Yes, there will always be enemies. There'll always be people to rally against. There'll always be somebody making a stupid comment somewhere, which everybody can hate on. No. Hate is a universal and unfortunate constant in human interaction. And so Twitter will never be fully cleansed. Fact is, there's horrible harassers on both sides of that argument. And right now, they're only purging one side. If they get around to purging the other side, even then, there'll still be people that other people will turn against.
Yes.
But it just means their audience will slowly shrink further and further down.
Yeah, that's my point.
Until it's basically just a bunch of corporations doing bland, non-innocuous comments to try and get people to buy their products.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yay, South Park.
Yeah. No, Twitter is crashing and burning, and no, look, this has been tried before. A good example is the atheist community, where you can see, Thunderfoot has pointed out too, after the free thought blogs did more or less their purge, their viewership has dropped enormously, and people like Thunderfoot on YouTube's readership or viewership has gained immensely.
Well, he already had a pretty decent viewership, but yes, the actual when he was just basically largely an anti-creationist science channel, he didn't have nearly the viewership that he's gotten now.
Yes, and right now, the free thought blogs are known to people that know about the atheist community. They've basically become completely irrelevant. They're still there, but they have nowhere near the reach that they once have. Now things are being more dominated by Thunderfoot and the other YouTubers. And there probably will come a time the free thought blogs will just completely die.
Yes, but I think trying to correspond that with the increase of the YouTubers, especially since they have their own YouTubers, that's just a movement of technology. The fact is, large blog-based communities and forums, for the most part, have been dropping in viewership and audience and active contributors. Now, in their case, yes, they seem to self-sabotage themselves, and their actual user base has dropped off dramatically well after the purge occurred. But the growth of YouTube is not due to this. The growth of YouTube is due to the growth of YouTube.
Yes, but still, the sudden leap in people like Thunderfoot's viewership and the rise of Sargon of Akkad and other people, a good portion of it was accelerated by the free thought blogs bullshit.
I think a lot of their audience came from elsewhere. It definitely pushed certain people who had previously been involved in those areas of the atheist community to search out people who also were dissatisfied. But a lot of their audience is just people who are generally pissed off with the current culture of political correctness, which is suffused left-wing thought currently. Because free thought blogs, although they were somewhat big in the atheist community, weren't that big.
No, they weren't
there weren't
big,
that many people who paid attention to them even before.
My point is, they cleansed themselves, and then they lost, I think, actually something like half of their readership. Like, no, they've totally screwed themselves. They're screwed themselves, and I imagine that the same thing is going to occur with Twitter. Either way, it's not going to help them at all.
Yeah.
No, Twitter, I think, is going to end up being bought out by another company, probably Google, and or someone else. Hell, Yahoo still has a whole bunch of money. They might buy it as their last gambit. Yahoo.
Yahoo's tried so many gambits, and they've all failed.
Largely due to their own incompetence, though.
Well, some of them were just bad ideas. But no. Twitter, in its somewhat incoherent policy of shadow banning some people, getting rid of some people and without applying some sort of actual universal standard it can possibly enforce is, yes, slowly going to drive people away to alternative forms of media.
Well, that's the thing. If they were more open with what causes someone to be, for example, shadow banned or not shadow banned people to begin with.
Well, shadow banning is just so convenient. That way the person doesn't even know they're banned, can't complain about being banned, and nobody has to listen to them.
Yeah. It's like the Bastille. We're going to have this prison where we could throw political prisoners, so people will think there's thousands and thousands of people in it. And then when we finally are going to go and raid it and try and let go of the prisoners, there'll be, 7 or 8 guys found in there.
I'm not quite sure I understand the analogy.
The Bastille in the French Revolution?
I know what the Bastille is, and I know what the French Revolution is. I don't understand how this applies to this argument.
Because by shadow banning people, people probably think that it's far worse than it actually is, as everyone could paranoidly believe they are being shadow banned.
Ah, okay. Now that makes sense. But you'll never know.
Yeah, you'll figure it out after a little while if you look, or you're just going to be paranoid about it. Like, it seems like they're shadow banning people like Sargon of Akkad and a very few number of people, which is still bullshit in my opinion. However, by them making the possibility that everyone could be shadow banned, and with previous incidents like the mass Twitter block bot, people can believe that a large amount of people are being shadow banned, like themselves.
The fact is, the Twitter block bot was perfectly valid, them allowing you to block other people. The way it was implemented was stupid, and people, if they paid attention to what it is, shouldn't have signed up for it unless they really just didn't want to hear anyone or the opinion of anyone who might possibly disagree with them. Mm. But Twitter allowing that, there's nothing wrong with Twitter allowing that.
Yes.
Shadow banning people to some extent, because you can't always know, because they're not banning all of your tweets. They're just making it so that some of your tweets don't go to certain people.
Yes.
So they can ban you to whatever extent they want and apparently don't have to tell you about it.
Yes, which is total bullshit.
And eventually, yes, once it becomes public knowledge. But mind you, they've been able to do that for a long time, for years. There's been evidence that people have been shadow banned long before now.
Yes. And now they're paying for it.
Yes, and now people are constantly worrying, am I being shadow banned? Mm-hmm. Why are people saying that they didn't see my previous tweet? Why are people saying that, this conversation, I didn't notice this before, and it was people I follow? But then again, that might have been a shadow ban, or it might just have been that they missed them, because, if you're subscribed to more than a dozen people, you get thousands of the freaking things.
Yes. Overall, it's a stupid decision. They've let their political bias overtake their rational thought.
Well, the idea that they haven't done a good job of ending harassment on Twitter is sort of true, depending on your definition of harassment. And trying to do something about it isn't necessarily a bad thing. The fact is, I do think you should be able to block whoever you want.
Oh, yes, so you should be able to block.
And actually, that should take care of most of the problem.
Yes.
In fact, you should even have an option that you can only receive replies, or you only see replies from people that you have said you want to see replies from.
Oh, yes.
So as long as they institute, the thing is, because it's almost impossible to look for all of this and find the people who are actually harassing people, or which messages are actual harassment, which messages are just legitimate disagreement for Twitter employees. It's much better just to give each individual user a suite of tools which allow them to customize their Twitter experience, so they don't have to see what they don't want to see.
Yes, but
At that
then
point,
again,
harassment, poof, gone away. Well, the harassment messages are still there. You just don't see them. So therefore, no harassment.
That's the thing. If they would let people on Facebook and Twitter have more control and just give them that control they clearly want, yeah, you'd eliminate a lot of those problems like that. But they don't want to give up their control.
Well, also, people don't want to have mean messages out there where other people can see them.
Yes.
About them.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're pandering to a certain constituency. And whenever you pander to a certain constituency, even a well-meaning one, you end up screwing over the rest of your user base. And slowly, with their not terribly profitable business model and their attempts to pander to a very vocal user base, and instead of just giving them tools, influencing the experience of everybody else, because they want everybody else to not experience what they don't want them to experience, they're going to slowly kill themselves.
Yes. This is going to happen.
Well, enough of depression on Facebook and Twitter.
Fun note, XCom 2 is so awesome. As well as the modding community is so awesome.
I don't know. I just watched the Yahtzee review, and he wasn't really impressed. He felt the first one was better. Of course, it's Yahtzee. So he pretty much says everything is crap, even when he actually likes the game.
This is a dramatic improvement over the first game. But I don't know what his reasons are, so I'd actually have to see the review. But no, I think just talking about the mods that have come out for it, my God, I never thought I would get as addicted to customizing characters and wanting more character customizable options than I already have. Like, every time I try and sit down to play XCOM 2 a bit more, I end up going through the Steam Workshop and go, hey, oh my God, someone uploaded Deadpool's voices so I can have a character voiced by Deadpool.
Okay. And how long until Disney does something about that?
Hopefully never. Or they do the smart thing and will charge you $1 to use the Deadpool voices.
If it's put in by a modder, it won't quite work like that.
But still, then there's the Commander Shepard voices and the various characters from Mass Effect voices. Actually, hold on a second. I'll be right back in a second.
Okay. Hopefully this will be short. La dum de dum 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 dum.
Sorry about that. Someone was just at my door. But no, I mean, XCOM 2 is the game that every day it feels something is coming out, like Stormtrooper helmets to put on your guys. And it's the first game I really have gotten addicted to customizing my soldiers as I watch them go forth on their adventures and die for my glory.
Okay.
I don't know why it works so well for XCOM 2. Like, usually for games, I don't find they put in that many graphical mods except for something stupid. But for XCOM 2, like, there's a few mods for trying to improve gameplay. But the vast majority is, okay, we're going to have this person's voices in the game now. We're going to have our Mass Effect friends are going to be back in for this game. We're going to have these people. We're going to have Space Marine voices from Dawn of War. Imperial Guardsmen.
Well, that's called opening your game up for modding on day one.
Oh, yes. And it's worked really, really well. Really, I'm really surprised in what's come out or how popular customization has really become. Like, even when you watch playthroughs and how attached people are to, like, Angry Joe and his Magic Man. Come on, Magic Man! You gotta clean up everyone's mess!
Okay, so you've been watching a lot of Let's Plays.
I was watching it actually before the game came out, but still, I've watched a few of them here and there. And that's the thing, I've actually spent more time customizing my guys at this point than playing XCom 2. Partly because I also get my ass kicked and have to restart. I'd be like, okay, who am I going to add? What am I going to read at now? Ooh, Game of Thrones tattoos. These look cool.
All right.
Well, yeah, no. XCOM 2 is one of those things that just shows that why you should open things up. And for that matter, why generally open source is, well, I guess it's not open source, but opening things up and letting people do what they want is beneficial and fun because, as I said, this is great. The game's been out for a month, and I am still talking about how awesome it is. Although, I admit, there's a bunch of people trying to say that XCOM 2 is not awesome. And usually, I haven't watched Yahtzee's review, but
I'll put it in one of the links at the bottom.
Yes, I usually get the thought in my head of, you're playing an XCOM game.
Well, there have been a whole bunch of graphical glitches that apparently some people have had when they shoot at one thing, it shoots at something completely different.
Yeah.
And, of course, then there's the RNG factor where that 95% melee attack results in a miss, and then your character gets killed.
Yeah, that is not a bug in the game. That's an obvious design choice.
Well, now, if there is a bug in the game which screws up the percentages, such that those 95% attacks really only have about a 50-50 shot, then that actually would be a bug. But that's probably just people feeling that way when they get their character killed.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's 95%. Just the thing is, you then get used to using the melee attack over and over again, and then eventually that number is going to be up, and you're going to be like, oh, shit. No, like, well, that's the thing. Like, you can get the idea that the game wants to hate you, and that's because the game does want to hate you because it's an XCOM game. But the probabilities, like, people have done work on it and checked, and also there was a check done for XCOM, and people just said, no, the probabilities are being done perfectly right. The problem is people's perceptions, because when things go bad, they go bad. Like, I think for the previous XCOM, when that came up, right, where people would be complaining how lucky they are, and they'd be like, there was like 4 sectoids for some reason in this YouTube video, and the guy with 30% shots managed to kill 3 of the sectoids, and on the last shot, he actually had a 60% shot, right, and he missed, and the sectoid ended up killing his guy, and he was like, no, bullshit! Bullshit! How can I make these 1 in 3 shots and then not make this 2 in a 3 shot and lose my precious guy.
RNG. I remember back in the days when computer games sucked and board games were actually more complex and better when that's all we had.
Even then, as an RNG, like, there's not as much RNG as people claim there is in the game. I mean, they lay out what are the bonuses and what happens in the game, and what's causing you to have this chance to hit. This is a lot more fair than other games that really do have a high RNG. And I think it's because XCOM, and especially XCOM 2, teaches you something which a lot of games do not teach you, and that is crisis management. Something goes wrong.
I think they teach you that you should cover your ass.
Well, you either have to cover your ass or you have to accept a loss. At some point, right? Like with the mission timers, you have to make a choice and say, okay, either I'm losing 2 guys and I'm getting the VPE out, or I'm not losing any of my guys. Screw the VIP. We're all getting to the extraction point. You have to make really hard choices like that, and a lot of people are having trouble making those tough calls, and they become even harder in XCOM 2 with things like the timer going on, that getting more recruits is a bit harder than before. And yeah, no. I think that's more of the reason that people have a trouble with this XCOM game. And also because people get so invested in the characters they created in the character maker and seeing them go through and be like, yeah, you're my guy. No, even I will admit, I get pretty punched in the gut when I see my favorite guy go die and be like, no! No!
Okay, well, I'll let you know what I think when it goes on super cheap Steam sale a year from now.
A year from now, yes. Although on a breaking news point, going back to Apple, so this is something, wow, Apple has decided to put out a giant middle finger to the Obama administration.
No.
This just broke 7 minutes ago. Apple has declared that it is working on an iPhone, even it cannot hack. And neither will the government.
Actually, it announced something like that a while ago. It announced that it was looking at doing that. I guess this will be the announcement that they're actually going to do it. Yeah,
they're going to do it. They have already begun doing this, apparently.
I think it's all for the best, even as far as national security goes.
I think it's for the best, too. I'm just surprised they're telling the FBI, the Obama administration, this hard to go fuck itself.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, anybody who's smart enough can get PGP and a variety of other programs, which will effectively make their communication uncrackable. Mm-hmm. It's just a pain in the ass to use.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if you make it so people can't track you down, people can't find your address, people can't get your corporate secrets, people can't find your stuff, yes, it'll help the terrorists, but it'll also help everyone else, from the terrorists, from the thieves, from the people who do corporate espionage, from the people who do identity theft, from the people who do credit card fraud.
Oh, yes.
So overall, really, we're better off if everybody's stuff is as secure as possible.
Yeah.
The fact is also, in order to conduct a terrorist attack, you effectively need a conspiracy. There have been a few cases of lone wolves, but the vast majority of lone wolves actually fail.
Yep.
Or are even detected because of their tendency to fail.
Yes.
And really, with the huge amount of non-encrypted data which is flowing over the internet, human intel and the ability to get some sort of personal connection, or the personal connections being what leads you to finding out about a plot, is often far more successful than any giant vacuum suck-up of vast amounts of people's personal information to try and fit through algorithms and get people to try and parse into something that anybody can understand in time to do anything.
Yes.
But that's enough of that rant.
All right. I think we're good. Let's sign this off.
All right. That is the State of Nerdom with a few diversions.
Yes.
I'll put links down the bottom.
Okay.
Later.
Bye.